Browns thought they had a plan. Veteran leadership at the top, a third-round rookie groomed quietly in the background, and a long-term project slotted at QB4. Everything looked controlled, predictable, even safe. But then, training camp opened, and that carefully built structure cracked within the first 10 minutes. Shedeur Sanders, the so-called developmental pick, walked onto the field and torched every expectation in his path. This wasn't a few lucky throws or one impressive drill. This was a takeover. Fans didn't just notice, they locked in, they filmed, they chanted. And before the session even ended, the conversation had shifted from quarterback depth to quarterback controversy. Dillon Gabriel, the higher-drafted rookie, looked overwhelmed. Joe Flacco looked old, and Kenny Pickett practically invisible. Meanwhile, Shedeur was throwing lasers, running the offense with veteran calm, and moving like the guy everyone else was supposed to be. One practice in, and it was obvious. This wasn't just a good showing for a rookie. It was a statement. Bold, loud, and impossible to ignore. Because what happened on that field didn't just threaten the Browns' depth chart. It challenged the very process they swore they believed in. And now, the pressure is on, because QB4 doesn't look like QB4 anymore. They listed him fourth, behind a Super Bowl veteran, a former first-round pick, and a third-round rookie who was supposed to have the inside track. On paper, Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to matter, at least not yet. Analysts called this a development year. Reporters said he'd likely be inactive most Sundays. And the Browns front office? They framed him as a long-term project, someone to mold slowly behind the scenes. But all it took was one practice to tear that narrative apart. From the moment Shedeur stepped onto the field, something felt off, not with him, but with the plan. While other quarterbacks eased into drills, Shedeur came out firing. Spirals with zip, footwork tight, timing sharp. By the time the 11-on-11s began, it wasn't about depth charts anymore. It was about who looked like they belonged. Gabriel struggled. Pickett faded. Flacco did what Flacco does. But Shedeur? He ran the offense like a guy who's been doing this for years. So, if QB4 just outperformed everyone ahead of him, what does that say about the process that put him there? Maybe the depth chart wasn't a reflection of ability. Maybe it was just a formality. And on day one, that formality got exposed. This wasn't about reps. It was about results. And no matter how many snaps Dillon Gabriel got, the outcome was the same. Shedeur Sanders looked like the better quarterback, period. Every time he dropped back, there was a sense of control, like he knew exactly where the ball needed to go before the defense even reacted. He wasn't just completing passes, he was commanding the offense. Deep outs, crisp. Crossers in stride, automatic. Red zone fades, placed perfectly where only his guy could get it. It wasn't flashy, it was professional. Meanwhile, Gabriel looked like what he is, raw, rushed, and rattled. His first three passes were a mess. One too high, one too low, and one that nearly became a pick. And while he did recover later, the tone had already been set. The fans felt it. The murmurs started. And they weren't about mechanics. They were about trust. One quarterback inspired it. The other didn't. But here's the problem. The Browns didn't draft trust. They drafted fit, intangibles, and upside. They wanted safe. Shedeur wasn't that. He was bold, confident, assertive. And in a league obsessed with control, that makes people nervous. But no amount of politics can hide what's playing out on the field. And right now, one quarterback is clearly winning. They didn't need a stat sheet. They didn't wait for a press conference. The moment Shedeur Sanders jogged onto the field in that number 12 jersey, the fans knew exactly who they were there to see. Phones came out. Chants started early. And by the time team drills kicked off, the crowd was already leaning in, literally and emotionally. They weren't reacting to the depth chart. They were reacting to what their eyes were telling them. Shedeur didn't just belong. He looked like the guy, and it wasn't subtle. As Flacco worked through his reads and Gabriel threw wobbly outs, Shedeur dropped dimes that had people standing on benches just to get a better view. With every completion, the energy shifted. With every strike, the sideline buzzed louder. No other quarterback, rookie or vet, got that kind of reaction. Not one. Gabriel may have been drafted higher, but Shedeur was the one getting the stadium treatment. This wasn't hype, it was clarity. Fans saw who was moving the offense. They felt the leadership, the poise, the presence. And when they started chanting QB1, it wasn't a suggestion. It was a message. They've seen enough. Now they're just waiting for the coaches to catch up. You'd think the quarterback who lit up day one of training camp, ran the cleanest offense, and had fans chanting his name would dominate headlines. But instead, the media did what they always do when the narrative gets uncomfortable. They shifted it. Suddenly, it wasn't about performance. It was about patience. Tony Grossi went on air saying Shedeur was part of a 4-year plan. Gabriel, he claimed, would develop faster because he was drafted higher. And just like that, the goalposts moved. Forget the clean footwork. Forget the sharp reads. Forget that Shedeur outclassed Gabriel in every measurable way. The conversation turned into politics, about investment, fit, and imaginary timelines. But here's the truth. You can't argue a plan into existence when the reality is playing out right in front of you. Shedeur looked like an NFL starter. Gabriel looked like a rookie, still adjusting to the speed of the game. That's not criticism, it's observation. But when Shedeur starts winning reps, people get nervous because it's not just about performance anymore, it's about what it says if the Browns were wrong. And for some in the media, protecting that narrative seems more important than acknowledging what everyone else already sees. The truth is on tape, and it's getting harder to ignore. Fans weren't the only ones paying attention. Inside the facility, the shift was just as real, and maybe even more important. When rookies start asking to warm up with you, when second-year receivers are pulling you aside after practice to run extra routes, when veterans, silent but sharp, start watching your footwork instead of their phones, something's happening. And that something is Shedeur Sanders earning the room. He didn't do it with big speeches or flashy celebrations. He did it the old-fashioned way, by showing up early, staying late, and firing absolute missiles during every drill. That stuff matters. Teammates notice, because in the NFL, effort is respected, but presence is magnetic, and Shedeur's presence is starting to pull the locker room toward him. Meanwhile, Gabriel is going through the motions. He's not making the mistakes that get you benched, but he's not making the plays that get you noticed either. He looks like a rookie trying to keep up. Shedeur looks like someone trying to lead. And once that dynamic starts to form, it doesn't go away quietly. The depth chart may say one thing, but the players, they're already responding to something else. And if the Browns aren't careful, they're going to lose more than a QB battle. They're going to lose the locker room. This battle didn't start at training camp. It started on draft night, when over 4,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, and the highest sack total in Power 5 football couldn't get Shedeur Sanders past the 5th round. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, shorter, less productive, and less tested behind real pressure, went 2 rounds earlier. The league had spoken, and it wasn't just about talent. It was about control. Shedeur came into the draft with his own voice, his own brand, his own vision. He walked into interviews with a team already built around him. For some execs, that wasn't confidence. It was a problem. He didn't play the game their way, so they labeled him difficult, raw, cocky. Gabriel, he said all the right things: safe, coachable, malleable, the perfect blank slate. And in a room full of decision makers desperate to protect their egos, that mattered more than production. But now, reality's flipping the script. Shedeur isn't just keeping up, he's pulling away. The same traits that got him labeled a project are the ones making him look like a professional. Meanwhile, the guy who fit the mold is looking out of place. Draft capital gave Gabriel the benefit of the doubt, but on the field, doubt is the only thing he's producing. While other rookies were chasing endorsement deals and camera time, Shedeur Sanders was doing something else, something the league didn't spotlight, but the city of Cleveland will never forget. Weeks before training camp even started, Shedeur quietly skipped the ESPYs to organize a fundraiser for victims of the Rainbow Terrace apartment fire. No press team, no NFL cameras, just meals handed out, donations raised, and his own money invested into a community he hadn't even officially suited up for yet. That wasn't PR, that was purpose. And it spoke louder than any post-practice quote or media interview ever could. Because it wasn't about being seen, it was about showing up. That's what leaders do. And for a locker room still learning who these rookies really are, actions like that echo in a way stats never will. Ask the teammates who saw him out there before sunrise. Ask the kids who walked away from that event with food in their hands and hope in their hearts. Ask the coaches who watched him invest in a city that hadn't even embraced him yet. They'll all tell you the same thing. This isn't just a quarterback. This is a foundation. And while Gabriel tries to find his footing on the field, Shedeur's already standing tall off it. Now the Browns are staring down a decision they didn't expect to make this early. Do they double down on the plan, stick with the depth chart, protect their draft investment, and tell the fans to be patient? Or do they face what's unfolding in real time and admit the guy listed fourth is already the one performing first? This isn't just about talent anymore. It's about momentum. Shedeur's not just outperforming expectations, he's shifting the energy of the franchise. The crowd feels it. The locker room feels it. Even the veterans, the ones who've seen dozens of quarterbacks come and go, are starting to lean in. And every day the coaches hesitate, that momentum becomes pressure. Pressure from fans, from players, from media, and eventually from within. Because once a team starts whispering, "Why isn't the best guy getting the reps?" it spreads. It undermines trust. It fractures belief. And the Browns, with their history of botched quarterback decisions, can't afford another misstep. This isn't about ego or process anymore. It's about credibility. And if the most promising quarterback on the field continues to sit behind someone he's clearly outplaying, the team won't just have a controversy on their hands. They'll have a mutiny waiting in the wings. The Browns didn't plan for this. They drafted a project, buried him on the depth chart, and figured he'd spend the year learning in silence. But Shedeur Sanders had other plans. One practice in, and he's already flipping the quarterback room on its head. Not because the team handed him an opportunity, but because he ripped one out of thin air. And now the narrative is slipping from the coaches and landing squarely in the hands of the fans, the players, and the performance. Dillon Gabriel might have been the high pick, but right now he looks like a placeholder. Kenny Pickett looks like a guy hoping nobody notices. Joe Flacco looks like yesterday. Shedeur? He looks like the future, ready, hungry, and undeniably real. This isn't just a breakout. It's a challenge. To the system, to the politics, to the belief that talent has to wait its turn. Because when a fifth-round rookie walks into camp and becomes the guy, not eventually, not someday, but now, you don't ignore that. You build around it. The Browns wanted stability. What they got was a spark. And if they're smart, they'll stop trying to control the fire and start letting it burn.